Arness, an outstanding community member and lifelong Alaskan, for her 100th birthday on July 14th, 2025. Peggy was born in Seldovia, where her parents helped shape her interest in teaching, community involvement, and legislative affairs. Her father, the first U.S. Marshal assigned to Kenai, was later elected to the first Alaska State Legislature in 1959. Her mother helped establish the Kenai Library, the Kenai Museum, Cub and Girl Scouts, and the Kenai Garden Club, in addition to teaching school. After marrying James Arness, Peggy moved with him and their first son, Jimmy, to Kenai around 1948. They homesteaded in North Kenai on Upper Salamatoff Lake, now known as Arness Lake. In 1951, their second son, Joe, joined the family. The little family started set net fishing together, and even today, their grandchildren and great-grandchildren continue the tradition of salmon fishing in Cook Inlet. After college, Jimmy grew up to be a local certified public accountant, and Joe became a local real estate agent in Kenai. In the late 1950s, Peggy and Jim embarked on a new adventure, the construction of the Arness Terminal, a marine freight dock in Cook Inlet, which became essential to the building and operation of the Swanson River oil field and the offshore oil platforms. Peggy has been a pillar of the Kenai, of the community of Kenai for decades. She spent time teaching, even welcoming the community into Arness Cabin to use as Kenai's first kindergarten. Peggy was also the first manager of the Kenai Chamber of Commerce and manager of the Kenai office of the congressional delegation. In her role as manager of the Kenai Chamber, Peggy started community events that have been cherished around the Kenai for years. The Old Timers Luncheon, created over 35 years ago by Peggy and a friend for a group of homesteading women, and Christmas Comes to Kenai are just a few of the events Peggy was involved in originating. Peggy was instrumental in organizing the history of the Kenai area. She's been a collector of Alaska and Kenai history, keeping articles, notes, photos, and objects to tell the story of her community. She has provided a wealth of information and contributed to many Kenai Historic Society projects. An avid gardener, Peggy grew potatoes and invited Kenai kindergarten students to her potato patch to dig potatoes and bag potatoes to take home, and also to enjoy a picnic lunch on the lawn every fall. Her flower arrangements were often the first stop on the Kenai Garden Club's annual tour. In 1993, Peggy and Jim were awarded the Kenai Chamber of Commerce Pioneer Award, an award presented to persons who have lived in the Kenai area for at least 25 years and have been instrumental in the development of businesses, education, cultural, or recreational activities. For around 10 years of Peggy's childhood, she lived on Unga Island, just south of the Alaska Peninsula, which is now deserted. Peggy was a compiler and editor of the book, The Alaska Pen, an illustrated history of Unga. The book went on to win the Alaska Library Association's Alaskana of the Year Award in 2008, which Peggy was present to receive in Fairbanks. Peggy is an exceptional community member of the Kenai area and has been for almost 100 years. She has invested much of her time and energy in shaping Kenai into the place it is today and telling the story of how it all happened. The members of the 34th Alaska State Legislature joined to celebrate Peggy Arness and her inspirational accomplishments. She has continued to be an outstanding community member through her public service, her development of the town, and carefully piecing together the history of Kenai. Peggy, congratulations.
turn it this way a little bit. Okay, show me. Get in there.
She's in charge.
Like that? Want Joe in there. Okay, again. Now you're gonna put the bikini on? That's what.
No, I won't. You're gonna put the bikini on.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to welcome Kenai Mayor Brian Gabriel.
Thank you, Sam. So I know we got a few, I don't have a whole lot of time. I was told that, last thing I want to do is see a politician with a mic in their hand when there's other people that want to follow here. So I'm going to make this pretty quick. First of all, I want to welcome everybody here this afternoon, especially our esteemed guest of honor, Peggy Arness. I was looking around this room. I don't think there's more history represented probably ever in one room in the city of Kenai. So give everybody a round of applause here. I mean, this is amazing to turn out here. And when you look at the accomplishments of this young lady through her life and the impacts it's had on the city of Kenai, it's absolutely amazing, the civic involvement that she had throughout her life and the good things that continue on today within the city of Kenai. So today we have a proclamation for Peggy. Whereas the city of Kenai joins the Kenai Chamber of Commerce and Visitors Center in celebrating a remarkable life and accomplishments of Peggy Arness on her 100th birthday. And whereas Peggy Arness, a lifelong Alaskan, born in Seldovia, has been an integral part of the Kenai community, guided by her parents' commitment to education, community involvement, and legislative affairs. And whereas Peggy, along with her husband James, homesteaded in North Kenai, where they established the now iconic Arness Lake, and engaged in the tradition of set-net fishing, a legacy continued by their grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And whereas Peggy's contributions to Kenai have been multifaceted, from teaching kindergarten at Arness Cabin to her role as the first executive director of the Kenai Chamber of Commerce, where she initiated beloved community events such as the Old Timer Luncheon and Christmas Comes to Kenai. And whereas Peggy's dedication to preserving Kenai's history through her collection of artifacts and her pivotal role in numerous Kenai Historical Society projects have enriched our understanding of the community's heritage. And whereas Peggy Arness's commitment to gardening, including hosting annual potato digging picnics for Kenai kindergarten students and showcasing her flower arrangements through the Kenai Garden Club, has brought joy to many. Now therefore I, Brian Gabriel Sr., Mayor of the City of Kenai, Alaska, hereby proclaim July 14th, 2025 as Peggy Arness Day in the City of Kenai, and urge all citizens to join in celebrating Peggy Arness's centennial and to recognize her invaluable contributions to our community. Happy birthday, Peggy. You still look great, by the way.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I don't think there's any other dignitaries in here. If I am wrong, state your name. We did receive some letters from Senator Lisa Murkowski, and she did get a letter from the White House as well. So those are there. I am just going to get this all started off. For those who don't know me, I am the current executive director, Samantha Springer, of the Kenai Chamber of Commerce and Visitor Center. These are hard shoes to fill, by the way, because almost everything in this building has her name on it. Like, honestly, when we look through files and pictures and records, it's pretty incredible the legacy that you have created here. So this is amazing. Like, I have, oh my gosh, why am I crying? So, sitting with her and talking, you would have thought that I had known her for years. She invited me over to her house to look through photo albums, and the stories were incredible. So, thank you for being here. Thank you all for coming. And then we are going to get started with our first speaker, Tim Navarre.
Thank you. And any of you could be up here. I just happened to be a kindergartner back in 1959 and 60. I went 2 years because my mom wanted me out of the house. I wasn't easy to control. And Peggy agreed to take me early because my birthday's in December. So, so she was my first teacher. She was a great teacher. If you've heard the stories, there were kids before me and there were kids after me. But I also was, our homesteaded out in the North Road, and we always got to go to Arness Lake and go swimming too. Even though there's a ton of lakes out north, the Arness Lake was always the fun place to go have a great time. And they were always opening their door to anybody. But Peggy, also, I'm just amazed at your commitment to this Kenai community in and around. And to speak to that, I believe it was just a couple years ago when you were 98, you drove yourself from out north to the chamber here to be here to welcome Santa to Christmas Comes to Kenai like you did almost every single year. And that's a real commitment, and I want to give you a round of applause because that's just amazing. The other thing I just want to say is the book that your mother, I think at 80, was the director of putting the Once Upon a Kenai book together. I can tell you that clerks around this whole borough use that book to write proclamations, to find resource of what went on. And that's just an amazing, speaks to your family's commitment when you talk about your father, your mother, your aunt, Eden McLean, to your sons. You know, Jim was instrumental in helping so many businesses be successful in this community. And Joe, as you know, followed through. I don't know how many years, Joe. I think you did 40 plus years of community service between your fire service area, your assembly, school board. I even got to work with you on the school board. I know you don't like that, but no, no, me and Joe got along fine. But that's just, but Peggy, I'm just amazed, and I'm glad I got to come up here and just thank you. For all of us, the community, me, I love you, the community loves you, I know your family loves you, so happy birthday and congratulations. And I just also want to end, you made it to 100, and I honestly believe you're happy that you did that for all your girlfriends that you talked to all the years about getting here. So you did it for all of them too, so congratulations, Peggy.
Next, we're going to have June Harris up from the Kenai Historical Society.
Welcome, everyone. I am so happy to be here with all of you to celebrate this joyous occasion for Peggy. It's been a real pleasure getting to know Peggy over the years. Everything that has been said prior to me, I could have and would have said, so I won't go back and repeat everything, but she is truly an amazing person. The one thing I can tell you is that we are so pleased to have have the Arness cabin in our collection in the Old Town Historic Cabin Park. Peggy's able to come over there occasionally and hang out and meet people. I know that she's done at least 3 interviews over in the cabin with 3 different people, and we have some of those available. I don't know what else I can add to it, except that we are so pleased that she's part of this community and everything that she has done for this community, and it's been a real pleasure having her. And I just want to say happy birthday, Peggy. If you haven't had a chance to come and see the cabin, please come down the street and visit the cabin. It is themed as a schoolhouse, since it was once a schoolhouse. It's not, it doesn't look like it did then, and it certainly doesn't look like it would now without all the the fancy things that they have in the schools, but it's still a schoolhouse, and it is a delight to everybody that comes through the park to see it. So thank you, Peggy, for your cabin, and happy birthday.
Moving right along, someone who I probably will have to cut off, Meryl, would you like to come up? What a time we're on.
How much time?
I'm not telling you.
Alaska's official balladeer, Hobo Jim, said, "This is the land where legends are born." And I have to agree with Mayor Gabriel. I've never seen so many of the legends of our community gathered at one time together. And it's exciting to be here. Many people that I interview and talk to, I ask, what is it about Alaska that makes it such a great place to live? Invariably, they will say the people. In a land with such grandeur, with such freedom, with such opportunities for hunting, for fishing, for sightseeing, for hiking, the number one answer is always the people. Well, what people are they talking about? Those who come because we get free money from the government in the mail? No. It's the people who came for an opportunity, who surfed the barge up on Unga and then went to the dance hall to meet the love of his life, Big Jim Arness, who was a mentor to me. It was the people who built community. And as the oil and gas started to flow, it was the politics of that community. Senator Ted Stevens. When I landed at Ted Stevens Airport the other day, I thought, it should really be the Stevens Arness Airport. Because although she stayed behind the scenes, those of us who were involved know where all of those great ideas came from. And Senator Stevens and Frank Murkowski and Don Young. Known as the Three Musketeers, but those of you who have read the book know there were really 4 musketeers. The 4th musketeer of those 3 musketeers was Peggy Arness. She got the things done. She got this building. She got the chamber, the Challenger Learning Center, and it's already been said here, her fingerprint is on everything that we enjoy and live in this community, because she was that 4th person. When Hobo wrote that song about the legends, he was talking about those people. And if there was a Mount Rushmore on the Kenai Peninsula, it would have Senator Stevens, Senator Murkowski, Congressman Don Young, and Peggy Arness. That's what I think. You owe me an interview, Peggy, and every year from now on, until I pass away, we're going to do an annual interview about the lady who has built this community and whose model we truly can follow. Congratulations, Peggy. Happy birthday.
Next up, we have Jack Porter.
Hello. I've been given the privilege to be able to speak at Peggy's 100th birthday party. It's amazing. The things that she has accomplished in her lifetime are just astounding to me. I am the president of the North Road Pioneers, and as such, I did an interview with Peggy last year, right after she turned 99. And that interview has been playing out here. If some of you want to see that interview in total, it's on YouTube under North Road Pioneers. You'll be able to find it, and it is an excellent interview. She is so good to be able to talk to an interview. Now, I've been told that I can't sit up here and talk forever, so I guess I've got to hold it a little bit short, which means that I'm going to confine what I've got to say to the North Road area. As a matter of fact, I'm going to keep it down to the dock that they built. Now, in the days of those docks, people were homesteading. And I don't know how many of you really have been around the days of homesteading, but people moved onto a piece of land. Generally, there was no roads, there was no power, there were no buildings, you went in there, you cut your way into a place to build a house or some kind of a dwelling, and you built whatever you could possibly get together. You didn't have a lot of money to build things, so you built out of whatever you could find, enough shelter to get in and be comfortable. You didn't have inside plumbing, you didn't have power, you didn't have any of that stuff, but you tried to put together whatever you could to prove up on your homestead, which meant that you needed some money coming from somewhere. You took whatever job you could find to get a little bit of money to do a little bit more on your place. Jobs were not easy to find. They were few and far between for most people. Peggy and Jim, when they decided to build that dock and they got that going, it gave jobs to a whole lot of people that were then able to make enough money to work on their homesteads and improve up on them. And for that's just amazing that they were able to do that. Now, they did that in a very unusual way. They bought, or somehow procured, I don't know if they bought them, but they procured 3 Liberty ships. I don't know how many of you might know what Liberty ships were, but in World War II, these ships were built for the war effort, and after the war, of course, then there were some, must have been surplus, and they got a hold of 3 of them. These ships were 441 feet long and 57 feet wide. They got 3 of those. They brought them into the Nikiski area, North Kenai in those days, or Nikishka Beach, and they brought them in and beached them and made a dock out of them. That was an amazing accomplishment for people to be able to do that. And the way that was done was with whatever labor they could find. And I would like to ask Karen McGann to come up. Her husband was instrumental in helping with that, in that he worked on that dock. He was a cat driver, among other things, and I'd like her to explain what he did there. Karen?
Thank you so much. Happy birthday, Peggy. My husband, Richard McGann, worked for Jim right from the beginning of building that dock. And so I was telling Jack the other day, just a quick story about it. Richard came home from work one day. He said, I always knew Jim was smart, but he's an absolute genius. He said, I wish I would have had a camera today to see Jim pulling that Liberty ship in by himself in a skiff with a 30-horse outboard. Pulling in that Liberty ship, and he said he knew the tides so well, knew the weather so well, knew the soil conditions so accurately, that he'd had Richard build this trench with a cat for the exact measurements of that ship. And then he came in far enough and had Richard hook on with a cable with the cat and back that cat up as that Liberty ship just sunk right in place. Then all these guys, I wish I could remember the names for sure, but I know it was Richard and his brother Dale and his brother Jack, and I think Hank Bardos and Isom Hillary. Peggy probably remember the boys, but all of them get in the hull of that ship, and Jim had marked exactly where they were to cut with cutting torches. And they cut holes in that Liberty ship, and it sunk right in as the tide came in. Jim knew everything about it. how it was gonna work. And he said when it was all figured out and leveled in, it wasn't off 1 inch from one side to the other. He really was a genius. Peggy married a genius. And he got a pretty good package there too. Thank you for letting me tell it.
Again, that was the first deep water dock in North Kenai, and those of you who don't maybe know about the dock, it is now OSK dock. At that time, we just called it the Arness dock. I think there was another name for Arness, something, but we just called it the Arness dock, and we were very appreciative for what it did for our community. Thank you.
Everyone listened to me and did that very quickly, so that was amazing. Joe, would you like to come up and introduce the next person?
I'll bring Colonel with me.
Perfect.
Did you sign my son out of this?
No, I thought you were gonna
You
introduce him.
wanna
and
introduce him?
then-
Okay.
I was gonna turn it over to family.
Well, probably know 90% of the people in the room. The 10% that I don't know, I am her son. Star of stage, screen, and a whole bunch of these pictures, which I'm not sure why, but I think what I'd like to do first is ask my offspring, my wife, kids, everybody up. All of them. Come on, Jared. Stand up. Everybody up. Get the kids up. No, stand up. Oliver, stand up. I know I'm going to see you. There you go. These would be my children, my brother's children, and grandkids. And grandma's great-grandkids. Okay, thank you, you guys. And James, while you're up, they requested that I have one of the grandchildren say a few words, and I'm glad he's going to because I'll take a moment to recover. I'm going to bring this back. Well, I suppose by now you're probably wondering why I called you all here today. I actually wanted to ask everybody really quick, and I didn't plan this, but if you've known my grandma for more than 20 years, raise your hand. How about 30 years? 40 years? 50 years? 60 years? 70 years? 80 years? Oh, we still have one. 90 years? All right. So when I agreed to speak here today, I didn't initially give a lot of thought to what I would say. I figured that this amazing 100-year life would offer plenty of material. Growing up in Seldovia and Unga, homesteading the North Road, the dock, life in politics, a 60-year marriage to the man that she loved. But as I considered all of these remarkable chapters, I realized that while they are amazing, they really don't define the birthday girl for me. You see, we regularly use names to define people, but every once in a while, you meet a person who defines a name. Peggy is my grandma. Many of you know her in other capacities and by other names, but for me, she's always been grandma. And what an amazing grandma she has been. From my earliest memories of her, sitting in bed between she and my grandpa, drinking orange juice while they drank coffee, because, you know, why wouldn't you have a coffee pot in your bedroom? She has always been there as the sun in our family's universe, holding all of our orbits close. Birthdays, holidays, graduations, births, deaths, any reason to get together and share a meal was good enough. And she was the center of all of that. Of all the gifts I've received from my grandma, 2 stand out above the rest. The first is community, real community, the community of family. Those get-togethers were carefully nurtured to maintain bonds, and I never realized how special that was until I became an adult. The second is her longevity. It has not only allowed me to have my grandma for all these years, but I've gotten to watch her be a grandma to my children as well. Because of this, the traditions and the values that she has instilled in us are being instilled in them. And this way of life and togetherness will be passed on through them. So I'd like to ask again, and this I did plan, so I'm not copying, everybody who's a member of our family to please stand up. I'm incredibly lucky to be a part of this family, and we are all incredibly lucky that you're our grandma. Happy 100th birthday, Grandma. We love you.
You're about done. He's not a man of few words, but I am. So, it's a great thing that this is happening today. For a lot of reasons you don't even know. But I wish that I could stand and tell you who and what these people are as these pictures go by. Kind of, as I stood there and watched them, it's kind of fun to see the history that's part of me roll along, and that's part of Grandma. First, everybody has to be wondering, why is Grandma to everybody? Ever since my first child was born, who is not here today, we started calling her Grandma. We called my dad Grandpa. And then as the children filled in and the younger generation started to be born, everybody called her Grandma. And so she has always been Grandma to everybody. And she answers to it reasonably well. Sometimes she forgets. Now I want to have a little bit of comparison here. And I was trying to think of how I was going to introduce Grandma today, but I don't have to because you gentlemen did a great job. You hit the high spots. You know, I appreciate that. I don't need to repeat it. But I will tell you some interesting stats. In 1925, the population of the world was 1.8 billion people, the year she was born. This year, it's 7.5 billion people. Population of the United States in 1920 was 106 million. It is now 340 million. Calvin Coolidge was the president. Anybody remember him? I don't think she does. There's been 16 people have been president since Calvin Coolidge. Who knew? Right now, on the face of the planet and in the United States, it's interesting, it's kind of the same statistic. 0.027, I think that's 27 1,000ths of 1% are over 100. find that kind of fascinating, actually. And in raw numbers, it's actually 80,000 in the United States-ish. Yes, Sir, That's My Baby was the most popular song in 1925. Actually, I think I even remember that song. And it was performed by the Hotel Roosevelt Orchestra, which is what we did in those days. And the fastest airplane in 1925 was 232 miles an hour, which I looked up because I was curious. I know that they didn't start until about 1915. The fastest airplane now is 4,000 miles an hour. So, has Grandma witnessed some changes? Yeah, there's been some real changes. I used to marvel at my grandmother and the stuff that she saw change. And now we're seeing it with this one. And then I remember, oh yes, we wanted to talk about why she's called Grandma. We wanted to talk about what it was like in 1925. I'm going to quote this lady, Sam, who's been marvelous in this entire production. The myth, the woman, the legend. It's time to celebrate this amazing pioneer. And she certainly had that right, but Grandma got the top quote when she was asked on the radio a week ago by these folks, what was the one thing she learned in her life that she would pass on to everyone? And her answer was, if you decide you're going to do it, do it. Don't stop. Don't back up. Just do it. Thank you, Grandma. Wisdom for the ages. Do you want to talk?
I think I better not.
You sure?
I'm afraid I'll step on my foot.
Oh, you know what? The one thing I didn't mention that I wanted to mention, because I know there's a lot of people here who care and wonder, and probably everybody. The middle of May, Grandma had, at her request, with a little bit of gentle shoving, a heart valve replaced. The doctor said, we don't do that to 100-year-olds. But they did. And they had a problem with the procedure. The heart valve worked just fine, but there was a hole in her heart when she was done. She had to go back in 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, something like, and have that hole in her heart replaced or repaired, and in the process, put a cut on the surface of her heart, and she nearly died because they wouldn't do surgery. That was only with the wires and the magic that they do now. So she's only been home for a couple of weeks from that procedure, hence sitting down. She could stand up here and talk if she decided she wanted to, but she'd only last for so long, and then it would be untoward. She'd be falling down, and she'd be a mess. But she's on her way back, and she's coming back with a vengeance, I'll tell you that. I was telling Rick Baldwin this story, and then I'm going to end, I promise. The guy who did the surgery on her, and it's not a surgery because they don't cut her open, it's the wires. He came in after her second stint in the hospital, and he sat down next to her, and he pulled out his camera, and he said, "Can I have a selfie?" I'd like one person to tell me they've ever had a doctor ask that. All right. Thank you very much for being here.
That's for you, not me.
Now you need to go get it. How you doing?
I can't talk.
You can't talk?
I can't talk.
She's not gonna talk, but she'll visit with folks individually.
Thank you.
So now you guys can eat cupcakes still. So eat the cupcakes and enjoy, mingle. You guys can stay as long as you want to talk. So thank you all.